be.
It's gonna be like one of those things.
We get regular
It's gonna happen once a
talking tos by our lawyer about
You know what I
making
mean?
sure
Yeah.
what we're putting in
Because
emails is professional and
No.
is not going to cause a stir if it
Yeah.
appears in
we
the
even looked
paper
at
or
kiosks,
gets
'cause
mentioned in
always
the lawyer's
the
brief.
boutique hotels.
Yeah.
Yes, for real.
They're also like so many millions.
Oh,
that it's
okay.
But
Well, and then
they
I,
bring
you
in,
know,
like,
too, would Nathan wanna ever go back and work in an office somewhere and you follow him wherever he gets his magic job?
Yeah,
Yeah,
possibly.
if he like, if he said, I could go be in office in Chicago.
I more of
Yeah,
a
we didn't invest.
urban lifestyle and stuff.
We
So
did
we
that.
may just
You were talking to
even
me.
we were sitting at a restaurant
Do
this
what?
weekend. And I was like, because I commuted for a long time when we lived in there, you know, I was fine with it. I was like, you
Yes.
could get a place in like,
Yes,
Back in Soulard or?
yeah, like.
that is correct.
That part, what is it?
Oh,
For some reason, I got in my mind it was at 6:30, and
Brandon.
I'm like, I looked real
what's
quick.
the, like the cute little
Bridget,
area?
we're recording, we're ready to start.
Oh, is it time? Sorry, we're just talking about vacation homes, sorry. All right, so we do have quorum, right?
We do.
Oh, awesome, okay,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
we can get started.
Yes. So for roll call, we have Bridget Kelch,
Here,
Joe McGowan,
Here?
Brian Bogue,
Here?
Rick Hop,
Here.
Deanna Fitzgerald,
Here,
Andrew Clary, Tim Pepsel, Tyler King,
Here.
Jeff Packey, Mark Hydridge, Sarah Skeen.
here.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on the minutes, I just had one note. When I mentioned Russ Wolmert and Sarah Unnerstall, I meant for commission members, not.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood.
I know, and I felt like, oh, here they are reading their names in the newspaper, and we haven't even asked them. Have you seen them?
I have.
What did they?
Well, I haven't seen them. I saw it in the paper though.
Oh, I was gonna say, did they say anything?
I haven't
So
heard.
that's for commission members, not.
I commission member ideas, yeah. I just remembered it really far into a different conversation when I said it. So that would be the only edit that I would like to see. With that one edit, anything else that anyone would like to change? If not, then I'd like to entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Are we gonna go in agenda order?
If you just want to do those, put
Okay.
those on the record really quick and get them out of the
All
way.
right, so new business design review since the last meeting. Those were 3 signs that we did approve via email. And so, do you want to do them, can we do individually, or can we do them all at once?
You can do them all at once.
Okay.
I do have one question that Joe brought up about the Apple dentistry sign.
I did have the same question too.
So the size requirement, that is still up in the air because when they submitted the application, the measurements were incorrect. So from the planning side, denied the application. We sent it back to them and they need to revise it. So we're still waiting on that, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So then you don't want to approve this one yet.
Okay, so
I think
that's
the
not gonna be
design was
approved.
It's just waiting on the size to
Right.
pass planning to go into building.
Yeah, so planning is the second step
Right, yeah.
in that process. So once historic preservation says, yeah, this is an okay sign, then planning will say,
No.
oh, no, sorry, it's the wrong size, it's too big.
Gosh, I'm losing
And
it.
then it goes through that. And
So
then it's
since-
building.
I mean, so, how would you like us to proceed, since this,
You can approve the sign from historic preservation, but planning has denied it.
well, then why would we
I would
approve
redo
it?
that.
The design is gonna stay the same. The sign is just gonna shrink to match the planning
Oh,
requirement.
Right.
So
You
basically,
guys
we're
don't look
just-
at size per se.
I mean, I did notice it, but I just assumed that you guys, and I shouldn't, because you were right, that it was wrong, it was too big. So I assumed staff had already reviewed it, so I don't want to approve it tonight, until it comes back, because it'll have to come back anyway for planning and zoning.
No. We just do it in-house. It's administrative. We don't send it to planning and zoning signs.
Well, the planning department, which is Sarah.
Oh, is that what you mean, the planning department?
Oh, okay, so it doesn't come back for, how do you guys feel?
I mean,
If we're doing it based on design but not size, then, yeah.
It
Yeah.
is something that we pay attention to. I'm glad
Yeah,
that Joe caught
yeah.
it.
I mean, I guess if it meets the zoning requirements, there's nothing we can do about it from a size standpoint, is that correct?
True.
I mean, if they allow a 6-foot diameter sign, even though we wouldn't like it, they could still do it, is that correct?
Correct, I mean,
yeah,
yeah, our sign requirements, we can't say, you know, if it meets that size, 5% of building face area, then we can't say it's
Yeah.
ugly.
I mean, it looks like a nice sign.
No,
big.
okay.
You know,
We just, it meets the size requirements.
So they get the final approval from you, they just have to reduce the sign area and bring it back in? It doesn't go to any other board or commission besides us?
No. No, so y'all are first, and if the design meets your criteria, whatever, you know, just the different, I don't know exactly what you look for per se, but if you say, yeah, that looks fine from the design perspective, we agree, then I look at it and go, oh no, the size is wrong.
Yeah, because we helped
Change.
push those sign requirements through. The commission did with downtown Washington
Yeah.
previously, so.
Since the
it
size
doesn't
requirement's
allow
already-
us- It doesn't allow us any comment, because we're an advisory board, right? We
Right.
tell somebody, well, we don't even know how big it is, so we can't advise them to make it smaller. So
But I
if you
can tell
approve
them.
it, then, and let's say it's 6-foot diameter, and we come here and we say, well, go tell them we'd rather them have it be 4-foot diameter, we don't get that opportunity, right? If we approve it tonight.
But she's saying that
She's saying
I
she won't.
can't
it'll
say
automatically
no.
get denied because it doesn't currently meet.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
The
it just
sign
feels
that-
weird to approve it, knowing that it was given to us at the wrong.
The sign is going to stay the same design, it's
Correct.
just going to be smaller to match the planning requirements.
No. Or sign.
So I'm good with the sign, and I think if Andrew were here, I think all he needs to be is told, and it'll
I
be
think they
taken.
already have been told.
Yeah.
The sign
Yeah,
company.
they're-
The
they'll
sign
take
Yeah,
care of
company.
it.
the sign company sent incorrect information, and we're asking them to send us correct information.
Yeah,
So,
I don't
Okay.
have any problem.
I would entertain a motion to issue, or just accept them, and how do you want it to do it?
We're just putting them on the record.
Put these sign reviews on the record.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, Ethan. Or however, whoever's going first.
We can both introduce, it is Andrew presenting for the most part.
Okay.
And you're bringing your computer, no, you're leaving your computer there and I'll tap it. I am Ethan Starr. I've had the pleasure today, I'm an architectural historian from the Missouri State Historic Preservation Office. I had the pleasure to conduct the CLG evaluation. What that is visiting with the staff liaisons for the commission here, Bridget as chair. We got the chance to spend some time with Tyler as well today and discuss the ongoing participation of the City of Washington in the Certified Local Government Program. This is the big picture of local preservation, and that program is established by the National Park Service. It's how communities like Washington and the other 65 communities in Missouri who are participants have received that stamp of approval from the National Park Service, how they interact with the National Park Service and our office here at the state level. We're going to present tonight mostly about grants, but as we go on, we can talk a little bit about how our office in Jefferson City interacts with local communities, what we have to offer for you, and how you can leverage the resources we have to offer for better identifying, documenting, preserving historic resources here in town. Without further ado, Andrew?
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. So I'm Andrew Dial. I am the grants manager at the State Historic Preservation Office, in addition to a couple of other titles. The State Historic Preservation Office is the state-level entity that is responsible for preserving Missouri's cultural heritage. Usually that means our built environment and our archaeological sites. So this is a standard presentation that I give often when we are on the road to preservation commissions and other interested parties. And as the grants manager, one of the occupational hazards that I have is that people tend to call into my office and ask for money for historic projects. I'm sure you get these requests as well from people who own old buildings and say, I really need money, that roof is about to fall in. So I'm going to walk you through quickly my response to those types of inquiries and give you a sense of where to direct people in that regard. And maybe it'll give you some ideas about where to apply yourselves. So first, our office does give out funding. This is federal money that we receive from the National Park Service. We give it out to communities across the state. And Washington has received a large amount of this money, over $300,000. 16 grants ever since the 1980s. That is a good amount of money that's come out. About on the par with Columbia. I was just giving this presentation in Columbia over the weekend. They had about the same amount, have gotten about the same amount from us. So you guys are punching above your weight. Congratulations to that. And this has funded a variety of projects, as you can see, from surveys to preservation plans to scholarships to an economic impact study.
That economic impact study was for the entire state of Missouri. Washington sponsored the grant application, but it was the historic preservation impact on the entire state of Missouri. It was a really cool study.
And we thank you for that. If you go to the next slide. So this is a quick overview of the grants that we offer. We give out between $150,000 and $200,000 every year. The eligible applicants are local governments and nonprofits with a historic preservation mission. Over half of our funds are reserved for our certified local governments. This is a requirement from the National Park Service that we have to pass on a percentage of the funding we received to you, our CLGs. So congratulations, you have a leg up in our application process. The grants are a 60-40 match, so we can fund up to 60% of a project budget. The maximum amount that you can apply for is $50,000 coming from our office. You can apply for multiple awards within the same year. So these could be, it's $50,000 per project. So this could be multiple projects, each of which are up to $50,000. The grants are an 18-month duration. They go from, if you were to apply in the current grant round, work would start in summer of 25 and end in summer of 27. You go to the next slide, thank you. We do have an application round open right now. We have a two-step application process. The pre-application is just a first draft of the application itself, the form and some supporting documents. That is due by February 28th. And then I will review that, send you my comments, you will revise, and send in a final application by April 25th, which will be scored by our committee. And if awarded, the work will start over the summer. We will also be doing another grant round over the summer that will have a pre-application deadline in August. So if this is too fast of a turnaround for you, and I understand it can be, wait a few months and you're welcome to apply again. What we fund, we fund 3 major types of projects, and if you decide to apply, each of these has a different application form. So you'll pick the form that goes with the type of project. I'll walk through these in a second. But the 3 types are National Register and Survey, pre-construction, and then planning and outreach. So in our National Register and Survey area, surveys are identify properties that are potentially eligible for inclusion on the National Register of Historic Places, either
I'm not sure which microphone.
It identifies properties that are eligible for the National Register, either individually or as a district. And Washington has accomplished several surveys with our grant money, so you should be well familiar. The National Register part is, of course, to nominate those properties. It takes a lot to fill out the nomination form, particularly for a district. Our grants. These aren't just for architectural surveys, these are also for archaeological surveys, since we do oversee archaeological sites. This is a map of the archaeological surveys that have been done in Washington. Most of these are done in connection with federal infrastructure projects, or projects that have received federal funding. So as you can see, they tend to follow roads and various other forms of infrastructure. Only about 10% of the state has been surveyed for archaeological remains. So this is something we encourage. In the pre-construction area, this is for individual properties, specifically those that are National Register listed and publicly owned. Those are two things together. We can fund things like maintenance plans or historic structures reports. So if you want to get a current conditions assessment of a property and an idea of what maintenance will be required the next few years, we could fund that. Also adapting potential plans to adapt properties to future uses, such as flood. National Park Service recently came out with flood requirements, or guidelines for adapting to floods. The next slide, this is a project that Jefferson City did in the pre-development area. They had some houses that fell into eminent domain that they wanted to preserve, but were worried that if they put them on the market, potential buyers would look at the state of the properties and say, I'm not getting into that. So they got our grant money to do a conditions assessment, structural assessment as well of those properties, that provided put a dollar figure on how much it would take to rehabilitate them. That way, potential buyers, when they saw them, they were not turned off. And so several of these properties were successfully rehabilitated, including this one. I thought that was a very creative use of our grant money, so I wanted to share that with you. Planning and outreach is sort of a grab bag. It has a variety of different projects in it. These are two examples in the outreach version. The one is a brochure the City of Joplin put together to tell property owners in historic districts, to explain to them, this is what a historic district is. This is the Secretary of the Interior standards. These are design guidelines. These are tax credits. And then they paid for the printing and development costs. The Missouri Archaeological Society does a poster every year. We've funded it for several years running. You can get it for free at a state historic site or state park. Usually comes out in September, since that is Archaeology Month. We have funded it for the past few years. I think the next year's edition will be about reservoirs and the archaeological sites that were surveyed and then flooded during the reservoir construction in the 60s. Planning and outreach, continuing with that, when I refer to planning documents, these are documents that will help you as a commission to think forward into the future. Preservation plan is the plan for the next few years. What goals do you want to hit? What priorities will guide those next few years? This example from Liberty. You guys are well familiar with design guidelines. That's what that center picture is supposed to indicate. If you want to update your design guidelines, which I understand were last done in 2009, our funding can be used for that. A historic context on the right is a document that is a history of the town with an eye towards the built environment. So it will tell you what type of building stock is where and what are potential, it helps to provide the background for doing surveys or National Register nominations. This is again one from Jefferson City. Also, scholarships to go to conferences. This is the NAPC, which I know you guys are familiar with, or conferences themselves. We can use our money to host a preservation conference. Walking tours. This is an app that Kirksville did for a walking tour. On the next slide, you'll see we also fund workshops on hands-on topics. On the left is a Windows workshop that we funded for state parks to teach their maintenance staff how to do window restoration. And on the right is Missouri Archaeological Society's annual workshop that they do every summer. We funded that last year. So if you want to learn how to document archaeological sites, you can sign up for that. They're doing it again in the summer of 2025. You're familiar with the National Alliance of Preservation Commissioners, NAPC. They run a program called CAMP, where they will bring in commissioners from across the country to train you on whatever you may need assistance training with, whether that's National Register criteria, Secretary of the Interior standards, how to make enforceable design decisions. These are some of the topics they offer. Our grants can defray that cost of bringing them in. A few things we don't fund. We do not fund individuals. We do not fund construction, so no bricks and mortar work. We do not fund archaeological digs or permanent interpretation, so things like plaques and museum exhibits. I've mentioned the National Register before. I see that I've seen the map that you guys have of your National Register districts. That's great that you have that. A lot of commissions are less than familiar with their National Register districts. We have internally a map of properties where we've made eligibility determinations. Where we've said, yes, this may be eligible for the National Register, this may be not eligible, or maybe. I copied this out from that list. This is in Washington, the properties and the determinations that we've made. And I've sent this list to Sarah, so she has a copy as well. So if you're looking for things to nominate to the National Register, this is a potential place to start. So most people, those people who call me asking for grants, our grants would not be helpful to them. They're for cities, they're really for setting the stage and making people eligible for other opportunities. Most often, I end up directing people to historic tax credits. We have 2 historic tax credits in the state of Missouri that we can utilize. There is a federal tax credit that is worth 20% of rehabilitation expenses for property. In both cases, these are properties that are listed on the National Register. The federal tax credit is only for commercial use buildings, and you apply through us. We are the contact organization for that. The federal tax credit can also only be used by the building owner. The state tax credit is worth 35% of qualified rehabilitation expenses. That changed recently this past summer. It used to be 25, they upped it to 35. It can also be used by commercial, residential, or nonprofit owned buildings. That nonprofit piece is another change in the legislation that passed through the last session. And it can be sold to finance the project. So it could be passed to a financial institution in return for a direct investment in the property. That is how nonprofits who do not pay taxes are able to leverage this incentive. And you apply for that through the Department of Economic Development. For both of these tax credits, we provide the architectural review. The projects have to follow federal standards, the Secretary of the Interior standards for these for their projects, and we're the ones who ensure that it does that. If you go to the next slide. So that's where most people land. I'm going to talk a bit about grants now. Grants are a scattershot. I tell people, anybody that's got a pot of money and interest in historic preservation can create a grant program. And so there are lots of pots of money out there, but they each have their own eligibility requirements and their own demands. These are some of the one of the more wonky ones in terms of eligibility requirements. This is one that's given by the National Park Service called Save America's Treasures. It offers up to $750,000 for building preservation, so big chunk of change there. A dollar for dollar match is required. The wonky thing about it is that the property must not only be listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but it must be listed at a national level of significance. So when a property is listed on the National Register, it can be listed at one of 3 levels of significance: local, so it's important to Washington; state; or national, important to the entire country. This is Save America's Treasures, so it has to be significant to the entire country. There are 3 properties in Franklin County that are potentially eligible for this grant, and you can see I listed them there. One is the Pelster House Barn, which is owned by us. We bought it with our state revolving fund. Another is Tavern Cave, an archaeological site, and then the third in town is the Franz Schwarzer House. So,
Not really sure what's going on with that one.
So-
Do you wanna, I'm sorry, do you wanna come over and use this microphone?
sure, I can do that. The other,
I'll go back.
The other limiting thing about Save America's Treasures is it can only be used once. So if you use it to do tuck pointing and then a tornado takes a roof off the next year, sorry, you can't apply again. You've used your one shot. African American sites, there is a lot of money available for African American sites.
So they'll have to come out and look at it, these wires are good.
It's okay, we can ignore it.
Okay.
Nobody knows what's happening.
So there is a lot of money for African American sites, both from the National Park Service, as you can see there, and from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is our nationwide preservation organization. I looked up the sites listed in Franklin County that have are listed in the National Register with an area of significance being ethnicity black, which covers African American. There are two, the AME Church of New Haven and the Barch Jasper House. The National Park Service also has grants for other underrepresented communities. One is designed to diversify the National Register. It funds surveys, National Register nominations, things like that. The other is a construction grant for properties that are related to the history of equal rights. Ask the National Park Service how they interpret that. For houses of worship, I get lots of calls from churches asking for assistance. The National Fund for Sacred Spaces will fund urgent repair needs of up to $250,000. There are some requirements there about eligibility as well. I plugged church into the National Register listing Excel sheet, and it came up with two in Franklin County, that AME Church in New Haven and the Bethel Church in Labadee. There may be more that are listed as part of districts. I did not search at that level, so you could look further that way.
And you also don't need to be listed for this grant.
Yes, that is true, but it should be significant at the National Register level.
Do you reach out to these folks who own these buildings about the possibility or not?
Good heavens, no. That's your job.
Can we do that?
That is your job. That is up to you, yes.
Done.
I can give you, I can give you the list, and you can communicate further.
Heavens, no.
If they call me, then yes, I'm happy to talk with them about it.
Okay.
And in cases where we have easements on a property or already have a pre-existing relationship, then yes, I do reach out to them and talk, but statewide, I just do not have the time, nor the capacity, nor even the contact information to be able to do that. I leave that to you at the local level. I think that's a good place for the commission to be in. Cemeteries, I get calls for cemeteries. We do not have a good grant program in this state for cemeteries. But there are places to ask for training. I was just talking to Bridget and Sarah. It sounds like you guys already have a good cemetery program, which you're very lucky and very fortunate in that. So good job for you. I'm impressed to hear it. The National Trust gives out money for historic interiors, up to $15,000. There are some eligibility requirements for that as well. That award might be coming up for an application deadline soon. The National Trust has several grant programs that they issue. You can see those here. Some are more general. Some are, that one at the bottom, the Hart Family Fund for Small Towns, funds a whole group of things, which are similar to what we fund.
We've received the FAVROT for the post office, and then we were awarded the Hart Family Fund for Fifth Street School, but then we didn't get the other grant, so we had to turn that one down. But we've applied for those two and been successful.
Historic restaurants as well. The National Trust runs a grant program for historic restaurants. You can nominate a restaurant if you so desire, or the property owner themselves can put forward an application. That deadline is coming up. Last year they ran in March. One grant program I forgot to put on here, because I was doing this presentation in Columbia last time, and they're too big to apply for it, but you guys are in the right size. The National Park Service runs a program called Paul Brune. This is a sub-grant program. You can apply for up to $750,000 from the National Park Service, and then you get to redistribute it as sub-grants for property owners. So you get to play me for a day and be the grant but you have to run a competitive subgrant program. It is for economic revitalization, so it has to have that component. Properties do have to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Main Street got one of these last year. You may be familiar with it and seen stuff about it. And they're in the process of dispensing that funding. Sedalia and Jefferson City also have received grant funding as well. So that's something to think about. That grant opportunity should be opening up in the next month or so. So stay tuned. You should be getting an email from me when it comes out so that you know. I know other Missouri communities are planning to apply for it, so it's usually pretty competitive. For cities, T-Mobile, the wireless carrier, gives out a grant program of up to $50,000 for community development projects. These aren't just for historic preservation, but they have been used for historic preservation in the past.
Your one Missouri recipient is Washington.
Oh, neat.
We,
Really?
we got it a couple years ago for our farmer's market.
Oh, wonderful. Railroads as well give out funding. Baltimore Northern and Santa Fe is one of those that does so. They've funded at least 2 projects that I'm aware of in the state of Missouri. So companies can sometimes have philanthropic arms that are places to search.
Union Pacific has one too. You can add them to your list. That's what we've gotten a grant from them before.
For the depot?
We've actually got it a couple different times. For the depot, we got one for our playgrounds, a couple different times, yeah.
Okay, I'm almost done. I'm getting towards the end. People every once in a while call me about bridges. We've got a historic bridge that is about to fall down. Do you have money for it? Please help. So I've called over to MoDOT and asked them, what do you guys have? And they told me about 2 programs that they have. Their BRO program, BRO, Off-System Bridge Replacement and Rehabilitation. And the other is their Transportation Alternatives program to try to put together infrastructure that's not just about roads and highways. So these are potential areas that, if you've got infrastructure that's listed, that may be useful to fund that. And if none of these grant programs that I've described meet your needs, which I understand, each of them tends to be a little bit specific to their own area. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't. There's always the option of building your own grant program. Several other towns have done it throughout Missouri. They've convinced their city councils that this is something worth investing in. So you can always go at it and do it yourself. You know what is best you need. And if we can't give you money, we can give you advice. I know on your website you already have a link to the preservation briefs. Just a reminder that the National Park Service does have information out there about how to preserve historic properties. Everything from dealing with water damage to tuck pointing to proper roofing materials, things like that. You can skip that slide. I'll leave you with the last, something on the left that makes me want to jump for joy, something on the right that always makes me want to tear my hair out. On the left, you can see our newspaper headlines when Missouri communities have received large infusions of federal cash, or cash from nationwide organizations. The top is the Sacred Spaces Award. There's a railroad award in there for the Grucker Coal Office. The other 2 are National Park Service grants. I love to see it when Missouri communities get federal money. We're bringing those dollars to our state. On the right, this is a map the National Park Service has on their website of the recipients for equal rights grants. You will notice that Missouri is looking rather barren in that. That dot is in Kansas City, Kansas. We have yet to receive a History of Equal Rights grants. I hope that we do someday. Maybe it will be you that applies for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ethan, did you have anything that you wanted to share, what we talked about today?
No, but I'm happy to take questions about Washington's participation in CLG program if anyone has them. We did have a productive meeting earlier, I should say. Where I think we gained a good understanding of the program, the preservation program locally.
I think some things that stood out to me today that we probably need to put on our to-do list is an update of our design guidelines. And that's something, we did them through SHPO in the 90s. But then this last version that we did have done in 2009 did not have participation of SHPO. And so we are missing some key pieces in there, and they're from 2009. So that could be something that we look and ask the city if we apply for a grant to get a new updated set of guidelines, since we haven't had those since 2009. And then a couple of things that because our ordinance is fairly old, from 1992, there's some things that typically end up in these preservation ordinances these days that we don't have. So that's something that we can look at to maybe make those additions in the near future. What else did I miss that we talk about?
That was good. I've seen the community outreach. I know we've talked about education a lot. I think maybe looking at applying for a grant for a community outreach would be good, and in conjunction with updating the design guidelines, because I agree, Bridget, I think it's time.
I was interested, I'm sure they have it online available, of Joplin's guide that they did through you guys.
Yes, and they have like 5 brochures. The picture there just showed one. Their approach there was to consider all the professional services, career paths, right? Realtors and business people, property owners, the different areas of life in which individuals might interact with historic buildings, National Register listed, local register listed buildings, and help explain to their particular purposes, right? How they can interact with both city, the Historic Preservation Commission, and say SHPO functionalities, national parks programs like the National Register, that kind of thing.
Sounds good.
He's going to be looking for us to all turn in our training qualifications in the near future, which we will be working on that as well as a group.
And I should note, on the topic of design guidelines in particular, I've been on a statewide tour to help commissions execute design review confidently. Design guidelines are great, but frankly, they're really only meant as a companion to the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. These are 10 fairly broad principles set forth by the National Park Service that we as professionals apply in our everyday work, right? But I went to school to be an architectural historian. I understand that commission members across the state did not. We can provide training in those 10 standards that commission members can then turn around and as a lens to view their own design guidelines, which really is how design review is supposed to work. Whether it's at the local, state, or national level, the idea is that because the National Park Service sets the standards for all of us, that we're all applying the same methodology when reviewing a historic building and considering compatible rehabilitation, new construction, or alterations, not just what is appropriate, say, to the guidelines in front of us.
I think that would be an appropriate training for us to go
Yes,
through.
for
So
sure.
if we could schedule that, if you're coming through this neck of the woods.
I'm not far away in St. Louis. so-
Okay, all right, well, I think we should try and schedule
Yeah.
that in the next 2 months, whatever his availability is.
Free to reach out. Thanks so much. everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
I don't want to go too much longer because I know we have a meeting after ours, but we've kind of covered a little bit of this. I wanted to just have on the record a discussion about 320 Jefferson Street, which is the building that most recently had the fire in it. And so I want that to be on our radar. I don't know if we've had, if there's been a structural engineer through the building yet. Can you report?
Question, what does that mean? You can't go in there without special permit. Daylight hours.
Okay, that's my concern. I just didn't want someone to automatically think it had to be demolished. So I would fight vigorously for that building. Okay, good. So, have you chatted, do you know the owner? Have we talked to the owner?
I haven't talked directly to the owner, no.
Okay. Do,
Everything's currently tied up with the insurance adjusters, they're still doing theirs.
okay. Are they local? Do they live local, the owner?
Don't.
Okay, good. I didn't know if sometimes they're out-of-town owners, sometimes, yeah. Okay. I just wanted that to be, you know, for us to be able to provide whatever support we can for that building, so we don't lose it. So, old business, we talked about grants. I think I'd like us to pursue, talk with the mayor and Darren about in the next budget round, pursuing a design guidelines or design, that grant, the 60/40 grant.
Updated, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be the 40 out of the city budget. And I can't even remember how much that cost. In my brain last time, it was like 40,000 was a total, but that was 2009, so it's probably. Is it? Okay, all right. So 60/40 grant on the, okay. And then conferences, so if we get education, if we can have Ethan back to go over the Secretary of Interior standards, that would be great. I think we did send out the National Alliance there. I'd like us to have attendance at that. It isn't until 2026. They do it every other year. It's in Minneapolis, correct, right? He talked about camp earlier. I have been to camp, and I can't remember what it stands for right now.
Commissioner Assistance Mentorship Program?
Yes, I have been to camp. I think three previous commissioners and I went to camp, and it was a really good experience. And if you ever are nervous about doing review, you don't quite know what to say, I think if you're able to do the Secretary of Interior's training and you're able to commit some time to training like camp or going to the National Alliance for Historic Preservation Commissions, you'll feel better about what you're doing, maybe a little less nervous of being able to speak up. Yes, sir.
I'll add that even though the national conferences are in the off years, they usually have a virtual camp training course. The national conference is in July, around the same time as Maine.
Yeah.
And they will do, so you can do a virtual conference in place of a physical one. So that'd be something to look out for this year.
Okay. We did meet as a subcommittee and talk about our preservation ordinance and if we wanted to make changes to it. And I'll try and make that a concise statement of what we really talked a lot about it. We went through, we read Herman's, we read St. Charles, we talked about ours. I read ours from the beginning to the end. In the past, I've only read sections that I needed, so it was nice to read it from beginning to end. I think that should be something that you do before you join the commission. So we talked about it, and what we decided is that we need to give a good try towards educating, going back and doing a really good education program for our community for the next year to 18 months. And letting them understand about, in general, historic preservation, but also how it functions within this ordinance and this commission. And then after those 18 months of really concerted effort towards education, then we would then bring up again if we wanted to talk about changing the ordinance from mandatory review and voluntary compliance to mandatory. There were a few things that we definitely noticed that day that maybe needed to be tweaked in the existing ordinance. And then today, talking with Andrew and Ethan, a couple things come to mind that we also need to make changes about cultural and archaeological, which is in a standard ordinance these days. If someone's starting new, they would want that in your ordinance. So ours is older, it's not in there. And then also, one concern I think that Ethan had was about our rules on demolition. That it should be, any demolition should be mandatory. So that might be one small step that we take forward and then really focus on education. So I anticipate the subcommittee meeting again to talk about some ideas for educational outreach. I'll go ahead and email the whole commission, see who wanted to participate with that, and then whoever does, we can set a date to meet outside of this regular meeting time. Anything that we need to know about the budget? I don't think we've spent anything.
No, we are still at $1,500.
Okay.
after Paying for that
And that's
sign.
through September 30th?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So, any other business or questions tonight?
Didn't we also say that we prefer not to do the email reviews because then we can't educate the people that are trying to do things? Is that, did we already sort of establish that or not?
Yes, but I think we did say the signs,
The signs we were okay with.
but we wanted
okay.
to physically see anyone else.
Right, and that's what I wanted to make sure we had clarification, and we were all on the same page and agreed that an email review for signs would be okay, simply because it's pretty cut and dry. But for any other type of application, that we would require them to come meet with the commission before we move through the process.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's fair, since we're meeting every month.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or statements, thoughts you want to share?
Great presentations. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming out, and we'll hopefully see you in a month or two. All right, if there's nothing else, I will take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Or a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.